You've done everything right. The career is solid, maybe even impressive. The relationship box is checked. You're hitting the markers of masculine success one after another. Yet at 3 a.m., when sleep won't come, something gnaws at you. A quiet desperation that has no name. An anger that erupts over nothing. A creeping sense that you're performing in a play you never auditioned for, speaking lines someone else wrote. Here's what you need to understand. You're living in a psychological prison so invisible that most men die without ever seeing the bars. The statistics are brutal. Men account for 79% of all suicides in America, roughly 36,000 deaths every year. Middle-aged men between 40 and 60 currently have the highest suicide rate of any demographic group. Yet only 17% of men receive mental health treatment, even though 19% have a diagnosed mental illness. What Carl Jung understood a century ago, and what neuroscience now validates, is devastatingly simple. You cannot be free until you know what controls you. The vast majority of your behavior, your reactions, your supposedly free choices are orchestrated by unconscious forces you've never examined. Until you undertake the specific psychological work Jung outlined, you will remain a puppet, believing itself free, while invisible strings dictate every move. Men engage in significantly more expressive suppression and emotional restraint than women across virtually all psychological studies. This isn't just a communication style, it's a systematic denial of psychological reality, and it's killing you slowly. When you repress emotions, you don't eliminate them. You drive them underground where they accumulate pressure. Eventually they explode. Consider your last disproportionate reaction. Your partner said something innocuous, and you erupted with rage that shocked even you. Or maybe it's the opposite. You've gone numb, disconnected from feeling anything at all. Both responses emerge from the same source, an unconscious you refuse to acknowledge. Research validates this pattern with disturbing precision. Men who avoid emotional processing are 3 to 5 times more likely to have depression alongside other conditions. Longitudinal studies tracking men over 10 years found that avoidance coping at baseline predicted both chronic and acute stressors 4 years later, leading to depressive symptoms a decade down the line. The strategies you're using to cope are actively creating the suffering you're trying to escape. Among men with serious mental illness, only 59% receive treatment compared to 71% of women. 48% of young adults would only seek professional help as a last resort, and 42% report they don't have the words to ask for help. This linguistic poverty reveals something deeper. Most men lack the psychological vocabulary to even identify what's happening within them. Jung called this rejected material the shadow, everything about yourself you cannot see. It's not just your dark side. The shadow is every part of your personality you've rejected, denied, or never developed, because it was incompatible with who you think you should be. And here's the law that governs your life. Whatever you refuse to acknowledge consciously will control you unconsciously. Think about the men you know who hit middle age and imploded, the affair that destroyed his marriage, the rage episode that cost him his job, the addiction that emerged from nowhere. These aren't random breakdowns. They're the shadow erupting after decades of denial. 26% of Americans report experiencing a midlife crisis, with the peak hitting between ages 49 and 53. Life satisfaction follows a U-shaped curve, reaching its lowest point in middle age before rising again. The crisis emerges when the persona you've constructed for decades begins to crack, revealing the authentic self you've been denying. Between ages 15 and 30, you built what Jung called a persona, a social mask optimized for success in American culture. You became the professional, the provider, the stoic, maybe the nice guy. Society rewarded this construction. Your career advanced, people respected you. The system worked. Except the persona isn't you. It's a compromise between who you actually are and what society demands. The catastrophe occurs when you identify with the mask so completely that you forget it's a mask. You become the role you're playing. Jung defined the persona as a complicated system of relations designed to make a definite impression upon others while concealing your true nature. Here's where it gets interesting. The persona creates the shadow. Everything incompatible with your carefully constructed identity gets pushed into darkness. If your persona is successful professional, your shadow contains your desire for creative freedom and your rage at conventional success. If your persona is nice guy, your shadow contains your selfishness and your authentic boundaries. Recent research from the University of Southampton confirms this with disturbing precision. Studies of over 1,000 participants found that people manipulate behavior to appear authentic even when they're performing, and they exaggerate strengths while overlooking weaknesses when defining their authentic self. You're fooling yourself most of all. The asymmetry is brutal. You easily see others' masks while remaining completely blind to your own. Jung himself lived this crisis. At 38, despite being a prominent psychiatrist and Freud's chosen successor, he suffered a complete psychological breakdown. He wrote that he was living in a constant state of tension, feeling as if gigantic blocks of stone were tumbling down upon him. He had everything external success promised, yet he felt crushed. This forced confrontation with his unconscious became the foundation of his entire psychological system. Research shows that 34% of Americans mention their job or career as providing meaning, with 70% saying their job provides at least some meaning. But here's the trap. Your professional persona has consumed your identity. When someone asks, "Who are you?" you respond with what you do. Studies using the authentic and inauthentic expression scale found authentic expression linked to positive need, satisfaction, and well-being, while inauthentic expression linked to reduced autonomy and negative affect. Living as your persona rather than yourself is making you sick. Think about someone who triggers intense emotional reaction in you. Maybe it's a coworker whose arrogance infuriates you, or someone whose neediness repels you. That strong reaction? That's your shadow showing you exactly what you've rejected in yourself. This mechanism is called projection. You see in others what you cannot see in yourself. Jung observed that everything which irritates us about others can lead us to understanding ourselves. Your rage at another person's arrogance mirrors your own unacknowledged grandiosity. Your contempt for someone's weakness reflects your terror of your own vulnerability. For American men aged 25 to 55, the shadow typically contains specific material. There's the vulnerability you've branded as weakness. It didn't disappear when you rejected it. It just controls you through emotional withdrawal and sudden explosions. Research shows men score lower on emotional intelligence by approximately 6 to 7 points across all measures, yet 90% of top performers have high emotional intelligence. You're systematically avoiding developing the very capacity that predicts success and well-being. There's your need for emotional connection, which you've outsourced entirely to women while remaining isolated from male friendship. Men compartmentalize relationships, keeping emotional life separate from male friendships and relying almost exclusively on women for emotional connection. Your need for connection has been rejected as feminine, so it operates unconsciously, often emerging as desperate dependence on romantic partners or complete emotional isolation. There's what Jung called the anima, the unconscious feminine within you. Receptivity, intuition, emotional attunement, gentleness, these aren't absent in men, they're repressed. The result is anima projection. You seek these qualities in women while denying them in yourself, creating both unrealistic expectations and perpetual incompleteness. And here's the paradox. While aggression is supposedly masculine, many men have deeply repressed rage. Taught to be nice, to succeed through cooperation, you've been swallowing anger for decades. This shadow rage doesn't vanish. It erupts in road rage, explosive arguments, or passive-aggressive behavior. Recent neuroscience research using advanced brain imaging has validated Jung's model with stunning precision. Studies using EEG technology found that unconscious processing occurs with distinct neural signatures different from conscious processing. The unconscious mind uses different neural pathways than the conscious mind, exactly what Jung proposed a century ago. Researchers identified two distinct stages: early occipital activity around 200 milliseconds, capturing unconscious processing, and later centroparietal activity, representing conscious emergence. This provides neural validation for Jung's model, where unconscious material precedes and influences conscious awareness without your knowledge. Advanced neuroimaging demonstrates how shadow work involves strengthening connectivity between higher cognitive centers and emotional centers, literal brain integration. When you consciously engage emotional material while maintaining witness awareness, the right hemisphere, raw emotion, and left hemisphere, linear thinking, integrate. The brain physically changes structure through this work. Recent research identified what they call neural archetypes, specific patterns of brain connectivity underlying behavioral traits. Using data from 500 participants, they discovered that different neural configurations produce similar functions, validating Jung's idea that archetypes are flexible organizing principles rather than rigid structures. Translation: unconsciousness creates rigid automatic patterns measurable in your brain. Consciousness creates flexibility and freedom. When material remains unconscious, it operates automatically. When you make it conscious through specific work, you build new neural connections. Beyond your personal shadow lies what Jung called the collective unconscious, universal, inherited patterns of behavior and perception. Recent research from 2023 to 2025 provides biological validation. The code biology framework proposes that archetypes emerge from biological coding processes. They have genetic substrate through structured patterns traversing biological, neural, and symbolic realms. For American men, certain archetypes operate with particular force, usually unconsciously. There's the hero archetype, the pattern of departure, trial, and return. American culture saturates you with hero mythology. The problem? You've unconsciously identified with the hero to your detriment. You see life as conquest, relationships as battles, aging as defeat. The shadow side is inability to be vulnerable, rest, or receive. You're locked in perpetual combat, exhausted by your own narrative. The father archetype governs authority, structure, discipline, judgment. If you had an inadequate father, you're either searching for father figures in bosses, father hunger, or rejecting all authority, father rebellion. Notice your response to authority figures. Does criticism from a boss devastate you disproportionately? That's father complex activity. The warrior archetype provides discipline, courage, boundaries, and protection. Most modern men oscillate between toxic aggression and collapse into passivity because the warrior archetype operates unconsciously. You're either the bully or the doormat, never the integrated warrior who can be fierce when necessary and gentle when appropriate. Psychologist Robert Moore identified a crucial pattern. Each mature archetype has two shadow forms, one active and inflated, one passive and deflated. The king becomes either tyrant or weakling. The warrior becomes sadist or masochist. Most American men never achieve the mature forms. You oscillate between shadow poles because the archetypes operate unconsciously. Jung called the process of becoming whole individuation, not self-improvement, but becoming who you actually are beneath all the layers. Research shows that those reporting more self-actualization demonstrate greater life satisfaction, self-acceptance, environmental mastery, and work outcomes. You can't think your way through this. You must engage the unconscious directly through specific practices. Let me give you a structured path. Stage 1. Confronting your shadow. This is the foundational work. I'm going to give you the most powerful shadow work exercise, the 3-2-1 process. Step 1. Face it. Think of someone who triggers strong emotional reaction in you. Write about them in third person for 5 to 10 minutes. He is so arrogant. She is so manipulative. Don't edit yourself. This externalizes the projection so you can see it clearly. Step 2. Talk to it. Now address this person directly using you language. You are so arrogant. You make me feel small. This begins withdrawing the projection by making it relational. Step 3. Be it. Become the quality you're criticizing. Write in first person, I am arrogant, I am manipulative. Own it completely. Find concrete examples of how you embody this quality, even subtly. If you're criticizing someone's arrogance, identify the ways you display intellectual superiority or need to be right. Step 4. Notice it. Throughout the next week, catch yourself expressing the quality you identified. The arrogance appears as always needing to one-up in conversations. You've been doing it all along. Now you see it. Step 5. Integrate it. Accept this quality as part of you. Ask yourself, what is the healthy version of this quality? Arrogance, when integrated, becomes genuine confidence. Neediness becomes legitimate need for connection. You transform shadow material into conscious resource. This exercise works because it builds neural connections between emotional reactivity and cognitive awareness. You're literally rewiring your brain. Stage 2. Dream work and daily practice. Jung considered dreams the primary communication from the unconscious. Keep a journal by your bed. Record dreams immediately upon waking. They fade within minutes. Look for recurring symbols. Maybe you keep dreaming about being unprepared for an exam. These aren't random. They're your unconscious sending you messages about unintegrated material. For each dream element, ask, what does this mean to me personally? If you dream of a snake, what does snake mean to you? Your personal associations unlock the dream's meaning. Then ask, how do dream characters represent aspects of myself? Jung also developed active imagination, deliberately engaging unconscious material while awake. Begin with a dream image or strong emotion. Don't direct it. Watch what happens like viewing a film. Let it develop on its own. If figures appear, engage them in dialogue. Jung himself encountered a figure named Philemon during his breakdown, who taught him that thoughts and feelings have autonomous existence, independent of ego control. Throughout your day, notice when you judge someone intensely. Ask yourself, what am I seeing in them that I can't see in myself? Do this for 30 days. You'll notice the same criticisms appearing repeatedly. That's your shadow profile revealing itself. Pay attention to people you admire intensely too. That's your golden shadow, the positive qualities you've also rejected. Given that men engage in significantly more expressive suppression, develop basic emotional literacy. 3 times daily, check in with yourself. What am I feeling right now? Name it specifically. Angry, sad, afraid, ashamed. Where do you feel it in your body? Allow the feeling for 60 seconds without trying to fix it. This develops affect tolerance, the capacity to feel without being overwhelmed. When you integrate your shadow, something remarkable happens. That energy becomes available for conscious life. Your creativity, power, sexuality, aggression, all accessible and directed consciously rather than erupting destructively. Research on psychodynamic therapy shows it's as effective as cognitive behavioral therapy, with large effect sizes maintained at follow-up. Depth psychological approaches produce measurable improvements, not just in symptoms but in dimensions. Clients identify as most meaningful, deeper self-understanding, enhanced self-agency, and greater social engagement. What does integration look like? You notice the complex activating, but it doesn't seize control. You feel your father complex triggered when your boss criticizes you, but instead of collapsing in shame or exploding in anger, you pause. You recognize, that's my father wound speaking. You can respond from your adult self rather than your wounded child self. Your projections become visible. You catch yourself judging someone's weakness and immediately recognize, that's my denied vulnerability. The judgment loses its charge. The energy that was bound in projection becomes available for your own development. You develop what Jung called the self-ego axis. Ego serving self rather than inflated ego trying to control everything. You make choices based on your deepest values rather than persona demands or unconscious compulsions. Your life begins to feel like your own. Men account for 79% of all suicides, 36,000 deaths annually, with middle-aged men showing the highest rates. Those aren't just statistics. They're men who never examined their shadow, never questioned their persona, never began individuation. Depression symptoms have increased 60% from 2013 to 2023. 70% of Americans experience at least one traumatic event in their lifetime, yet men consistently choose suppression over processing. The result is a population carrying unintegrated psychological material that erupts in midlife crises, relationship destruction, and suicide. You're at a choice point. You can close this video and return to unconsciousness, maintaining your persona and avoiding your shadow. Only 7.2% of men receive counseling or therapy. Males with depression are 33% likely to receive treatment versus 43% of females. You're statistically more likely to ignore this than act on it. Or you can acknowledge a truth that terrifies the ego. You are not as free as you believe. The life you're living might not be fully yours. Forces you don't understand are making choices you think are conscious. Jung discovered that the psyche contains its own healing capacity. What he called the self actively guides individuation when you cooperate with the process. You don't have to figure everything out alone. You only have to begin the work. Start simple. Try the 3-2-1 process on whoever triggered you today. Start a dream journal tonight. Notice your projections tomorrow. Each time you make something unconscious conscious, you gain a degree of freedom. Consider working with a Jungian analyst or depth psychologist. Applied Jung provides structured programs toward individuation. Resources exist that didn't when Jung first charted this territory. The path isn't comfortable. Shadow work will destabilize your persona. You'll face material that feels dangerous. Integration will require life changes your ego fears. But consider the alternative. Remaining in the prison, suffering you've normalized, patterns you've accepted, the slow death of never becoming who you actually are. Here's what you need to understand. Men who make it to 70 are often happier than men at 40. Life satisfaction forms that U-shape, lowest in middle age, rising again in later life. The difference isn't circumstances, it's consciousness. The men who do this work transform suffering into wisdom, crisis into awakening. Jung wrote that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That procedure is disagreeable, which is why most people avoid it. But disagreeability is not danger. The real danger is spending your life as a stranger to yourself, dying without ever knowing who you actually were beneath the masks and defenses. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung said, is to become who you truly are, not who your parents wanted you to be, not who society rewards, not the persona you constructed for survival, who you actually are beneath all that. Your chains are psychological. Your liberation requires the same substance. The door has always been open. You've just been too busy maintaining the cell to notice it. The question isn't whether you're capable of this work. The question is whether you're willing to walk through that door, whether you're willing to look at what you've spent a lifetime avoiding, whether you're willing to become free. Walk through it.